I want to welcome you, Justin. I want to thank you for joining us, taking time out of your busy evening to join us. And tell us a little bit more about you, what you do, because I know you're in St. Louis, and then starting all these companies. Tell us a little bit more about what you've got going on.
Sure. Yeah. Thanks for having us. I appreciate it, or having me, I guess. So I'm in St. Louis, Missouri. I actually live in St. Peters, right outside of St. Louis. I've been here since I was like 13, something like that. And I currently run and I'm a co-owner in BallPoint Marketing as well as Call Porter. And then I have a real estate investing company down in Baton Rouge as well, where we do deals down there. Yeah. We have a good friend who's our business partner down there. And so he kind of oversees all the day-to-day operations, management, stuff like that of the deals as well. And then we handle some of the coaching and marketing and stuff on the back end.
Okay, well, great. Well, trying to give our audience and our replay audience a little bit of background how we got here. I'm a real estate investor in Kansas City. Most of the people on the call know me from MAREI. And I have been doing all kinds of marketing to generate deals. Back in the day, we just went and bought them off MLS. It was awesome. You could just pull them up and there they were. And then that became very, very difficult. And we discovered that, hey, you can mail letters to people that are on specific mailing lists and people would call you back. And I'm like, oh, that's cool. So we started doing that more and more and replaced MLS. And then the market got really tight. And then the market got even tighter. And the market got even tighter. And then everybody and their brother and their grandmother and their cousin all decided they were all going to become real estate investors. And they all started doing all the marketing that back in the day, 10 years ago, I didn't have to market. These sellers would just find my website. I would send out a few letters and they didn't have to be anything different because they only got one from me. They didn't get the pile that they get today. Yeah. So I've been researching now, trying to figure out, because I did all my direct mail marketing in-house. And to do massive quantities of direct mail marketing in-house or even small quantities, well, I know everybody on the call can relate. Other things are more important, at least they feel like they're more important because they're easier than building your list and printing that letter and stuffing that in the envelope. So I have been looking at, well, postcards. I've been looking at ways that I can get series of letters sent. I'm trying to find ways that we can get better series that are written or that look different. So I don't currently have an investment property that seems to be on any list out there. So I'm not getting a pile of marketing. But a few years ago, every letter and postcard I got was exactly the same. They might have came from different companies, but they all look the same. So I've been doing a lot of research and I came across BallPoint Marketing. I actually signed up for the free book. I still have yet to read the free book because I sign up for all the free books and then I never read them. But with your free book, you send a ton of emails, not a ton. I would say a reasonable amount of emails. You send way less than I do. But every email I seem to read because they're very helpful. I mean, Good. They are talking about buying houses and doing deals, and they are real. They're not like, Justin hasn't done a deal in 35 years and he's using the deal from way back then. No, it's like real stuff. And so I read your emails and I really get a lot out of them. I'm still researching. I still have questions on BallPoint. I think I ran into the problem, and we'll get to this as you go forward. I ran into the problem. I have a couple lists that I really think BallPoint would be great for, but they're only like 20 letters at a time.
That's all right. So we have a way to fix that.
Okay, I figured you did, so that's why we have you here. So I'm going to turn it over to you and let you tell us all about BallPoint Marketing. We have an audience to help me because I always forget to ask the right questions. So the audience, please put your questions in the chat and we will make sure that your questions get asked and we have all the answers for everybody. Cool. So I will turn it over to you. I don't know if you have a screen to share, but you should be able to do that if you want to, but you can just chat if you would like to.
Perfect. Yeah, I don't have any slides. I get distracted for some reason when I have them. It's just easier for me to talk without it. So super happy to be on here again. Thanks for having us on. You know, I'm glad that you read our emails. If anyone else on here is on our email thread, you'll notice, and as you kind of use BallPoint and stuff going forward, you'll notice a kind of a trend of how we operate, how we market to people and how we talk to people. Most companies that like you work with, all the emails you get are a sale, new item, hey, you left something in your cart. We haven't seen you in a minute, like all that kind of stuff. Right. And it's very transactional. So what our goal is we go through and we look at everything from a relationship based and how can we provide more value than we're asking. So with our kind of process, it's like, I'd have to look at the percentages, but I think it's like 60-40. It's like 60% give, 40% ask. So 60% of the stuff you're going to get is value, data, case studies from our clients, lists that people are using. And the other 40 is still going to have that, but there's also going to be coupons or different things like that. So we do a similar process with our direct mail is we want to stand out from everybody, right? Like everybody, if you guys, you guys all probably live somewhere. So if you get mail at your house, you typically get at least some sort of postcard, yellow letter, something like that you see pretty much anywhere. And so our goal is to kind of think through how can we stand out above everybody else, right? Like you said, the amount of wholesalers that are out there, the amount of flippers, the amount of buy and hold investors is just, even since I've been in the industry, which is only 5 years, has gotten crazy. Like just the amount of people that I've seen in here. So how do we stand out above and beyond everyone else? And that's our biggest goal, is how to answer that question. So we built this company kind of with our own like internal advantage first in our own real estate companies, where we just found these machines, they handwrite letters. And so we used them and they worked really, really well. We were getting great responses. And then our friends started finding out about it, clients, things like that. And so we decided to make a company out of it. And
use your tools.
Yeah, exactly. And, don't look at it and be stingy and say, hey, this is just mine. No one else can have it. Right. Like I'm not going to market everywhere. So might as well help other people too. There's a couple of different like unique things that we do. And like, even if you guys don't use BallPoint, like I totally know, and I don't discount anything, that like our prices are more than typical direct mail, but there's a reason behind that. So if you end up using somebody else, totally fine, but I'm going to give you tools to look for to help make your direct mail as effective as possible. If you look through us, it's already going to be done for you. But if not, there are things you can do. So the first thing is the messaging in your copy or in your letter. I get a lot of requests and I see a lot of proofs from people that when they order, they have their own verbiage that comes through, and it'll say things like, hey, so sorry for the recent death in the family. I'm sorry to hear about that. If you're looking for a way to help or something to do with that house, I'm here to help you. Or I've seen it on foreclosures. People are bringing to light the negative, right? Anytime we're marketing to someone, our goal is to stay away from bringing that negative to light, right? Like we all know what lists we have, right? If we've got PropStream or Deal Machine or List Source or whoever you're getting data from, we know what's going on with that person. So in our experience, it's been that if you don't call out whatever that concern is, right? You don't bring the negative side of it or the painful thing that this person doesn't want to deal with, right? Because they're typically in a kind of a rough spot if they're selling to an investor. So our goal with that is we're just going to ask them, hey, like our standard copy right now is, Dear Susan, what are your plans for 123 Main Street? I've prepared a cash offer that I'd love to discuss with you. Give me a call or shoot me a text if you're interested. Sincerely, Justin. That's been our copy or a similar variant of that for 5 years, and it still performs amazing. And it's because it's very warm, it's very inviting. And we kind of built it around like the How to Win Friends and Influence People book, where, our goal is to approach them in a comforting, friendly way first. Right. And
hey, I'm sorry your husband died. Can I buy your house?
Yes. And I will give you a perfect example of this. My mother-in-law and father-in-law live like literally right next door to us. And my father-in-law passed away during COVID. And that was one of the letters my mother-in-law got was, hey, sorry, your husband passed away. We all go through tough times, blah, 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 blah. And seeing how frustrated she was from that, like just so quickly after it, like I totally get it. And so it's something that we always try to avoid, is just any negatives, whatever it is, we want to leave it out. So that's kind of the first thing, is when you're looking at mail, when you're doing any form of paid marketing, even if it's online, stick to something that is going to be warm, inviting, capture their attention, but we're not bringing to light whatever that negative thing is right off the bat. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I sent you this nice letter in this nice envelope that looks totally different, that looks like an invitation to a wedding or something. Yep. Oh, by the way, can I buy your house? Sorry, exactly. Your husband died. It doesn't flow.
Yes, exactly. And that's, I don't know. It's kind of my whole philosophy on just like just talking with people in general, right? Like I'm here to help you be as friendly as I can. And like, I'm not trying to bring up the crap that you don't want to talk about. And if you do, like, I'm here, but I'm not going to bring it up in intentionally in front of them. So that's kind of your first bit. Second part is how it's delivered. So if you're not in direct mail, I would not expect anybody to know this, and that's totally fine. But I'm going to give you a little bit of a trick that some of our clients use currently, or we teach our clients to use, is that there's two forms of postage, right? Like the stamps you and I get at USPS or in the vending machines at Walmart, those are called first class stamps, right? Your regular forever first class stamps. When you put those in the mail, they get delivered 2 or 3 days later. No matter when you drop it, you could drop it on a Saturday, a Sunday, a Wednesday, a Tuesday. It's going to be in the mail 2 to 3 days later every time. What most marketing companies do, and the reason why most marketing is really cheap, not only being printed, but they use what's called bulk postage or pre-sorted mail. It's kind of the same thing, but it's a lower postage rate. And kind of what you trade for that lower postage rate is some of the perks. So one of the perks is you don't get any return to sender mail. So you don't know who on your list doesn't really live there. You just kind of keep blindly sending, and it is what it is. Second part is how that mail is delivered. You guys probably don't do this now, but you will now after we're talking about it. 1 day a week, sometimes 2 in your market, you get junk mail in your mailbox. For me, it's Mondays. Every single week, every single Monday, like clockwork, I come out and I've got this much stuff in there. I've got magazines, the value packs, coupons, advertisements, all the stuff from American Express or Visa, whatever, right? That is where bulk mail and pre-sorted mail always ends up. So regardless of when you want it to drop, it has to be dropped on those bulk mail dates because it's being paid in a bulk price with that other marketing. So your mail is always going to end up with other marketing pieces. You're going to be one of 20, 15 letters in there. You have a higher likelihood of things getting thrown away. And it can take longer. So if like St. Louis, for example, it's Monday. If I put my stuff out on Monday, it's not going to hit until an entire week later. So if you're trying to hit things like probates or pre-foreclosures, things that are a little more time sensitive, you can kind of run into a delay with that. What we do is we teach our clients like, hey, look at your mailbox for the next week while you're waiting for your mail and see what day you get junk mail. And then when you get your first class letters from us, just throw them in the mail the day before or the day after that. And that way when your mail hits, you're one of the 2 or 3 letters that are landing in the mail. So that's kind of like our most premium product is priced at that. It's like $1.80, I think, a piece, including postage, handwriting, all that kind of stuff. So with those get delivered to you in a box, and then you throw those out in the mail. We do offer bulk mail. We do offer pre-sorted mail and postcards. So there is that little bit of a response rate kind of exchange for price that you give away. So you have a little bit of a lower response rate on those. Yes.
Can we back up? You say you deliver it to us in a box. So we're not all over the country sending out mail that's postmarked St. Louis.
Correct. Unless you do one of our postcards or like pre-sorted ones just for a cheaper rate, those get dropped from St. Louis and will be postmarked. But if you do one of the first class letters that has first class postage, which is like honestly 70% of what we do anyway, those get delivered to you in USPS flat rate boxes directly to your door or your office, whatever is easier for you. And then what we tell our clients to do is however many you got, just split it up weekly. So every Saturday or every Tuesday, put a section of that in the mail. And that way you have consistent lead flow that's coming out. You have local postmarks. And then you're also avoiding that day where you would get bulk or pre-sorted mail. Okay, interesting. Cool. Yep. And learn things today. Yeah, right. All kinds of fun stuff you didn't know you needed to know. I will also like kind of tell you guys too, like our average response rates too. I know I talked about it for a second there, but the first class mail, we're typically seeing anywhere from 1% to 2% response rate on average, where pre-sorted mail is like 0.5% to 0.75%, which is still pretty good. Because it is handwritten, right? So it still stands out. Everything we do has some sort of handwritten aspect with the ballpoint pens that we use on the letters. And the like typical pre-printed, pre-sorted type stuff that you can get for 30, 40 cents, they get like less than 0.1%. So for me, most of the people I know and work with, it's worth spending a little bit more money to get those higher results in the long term. Does that make sense? Yes, yes. I've actually paid people to handwrite my letters, not my letters, but my envelopes so that they would get open. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Awesome. That's actually what we did before we started this is we had somebody that hand wrote them and we had to stuff them in the envelope, seal them, put the stamps on them, all that kind of fun stuff.
I like them to do that part too, because stuffing envelopes that's a drive to, well, it used to be my task driving to the lake. So we'd print the letters and then we'd head to the Lake of the Ozarks. And on the way, as a passenger, I would stuff envelopes and then we would drop them in the mail in Sunrise Beach.
Yeah, that's a great way to kill time. We've even using inserting machines. I still hate inserting mail. It's not fun. It's not my favorite, but luckily we have people that like doing it. So yeah, we can get stuff done. First 2 points, any questions around those, around either the like postage classifications or kind of your messaging, things like that?
Well, also you talked about getting the return mail when they don't live there. Should we be keeping those letters? When they get returned to us, what should we do with that letter that comes back to us?
Great question. So if you guys have a VA or somebody that works with you, it's a great task for them to do. If not, it's something that's great to set aside for like once a week, right? Probably take you 2 hours, maybe, like not a crazy amount of time. What we do whenever we get return to senders, though, is we take a picture of them with our phone, upload it into a Google Photos album that is specifically for all of our return to sender mail. That album is shared with our virtual assistant. And what she will do is then she'll transcribe everything into a Google Sheet. And that way we have their name, address that was incorrect. And then what we'll then do is we'll pay to have that skip traced and we'll cold call them as just like one-off cold calls. We don't use a dialer or anything like that because there's typically like anywhere from like 1% to 3% of your mail is always going to be returned, sometimes 5% on the higher end, but you're always going to have that. So if you send out 2,000 pieces of mail, you're going to have 20 of them or so, right? So not worth going out to get a dialer or anything. You can do a couple phone calls on those to get those started. So that's what I would typically recommend, is make sure that you're always skip tracing them and cold calling them, whether if it's yourself or you have someone else do it. We do use Skip Genie right now for any skip tracing that we do. And then trying to remember what their price is. I think it's like 20 cents a piece, maybe something like that. The other thing in the near future, I believe, is Simply is our CRM that we use. And I think they will have a feature where we can do that as well, kind of skip trace it. So that way it's all done in one platform if you guys use that or have heard of it.
But almost any of the platforms you're probably getting data from also has a skip trace, like PropStream, you can skip trace
most of them.
In it. Yeah,
yep.
So
yep.
Everything
most of
I've
them
looked at and used, they're like, oh, we can skip trace that for you too.
Yes. I will say Skip Genie so far, we've seen the best data out of. So they all kind of use like different providers, but so far Skip Genie has been the best that we've seen. But yes, like I know people that use PropStream. I know people that use, specific like batch skip tracing, I think is another one that a lot of people use. So a couple different things that you could do based on it, but want to make sure that you're cold calling them. And then depending on kind of where you're at in your real estate journey, we use a CRM for all of our deals. I know some people just use pen and paper, but if you can spend, $100 a month, you could get a pretty decent, robust CRM. I recommend Simply. We use them. They're good friends of ours and their stuff is great. But when you are calling these people after you're skip tracing them, you want to make sure you always have a next follow-up task or next item. This doesn't really pertain to mail. It's more just like business in general. But our goal, like anytime we have a lead that comes in, whether if it's from inbound traffic or a return sender or from outbound that we missed, whatever it might be, that goes into our CRM and has some sort of follow-up task after we do it. That way we don't forget about it as we're working new leads. And we're always following up with people.
So then you might, after you've skip traced and tried to call them, you might see if they had a different address or try to find them on social media.
You could do that, but I would honestly start with sending, after you call them, when you skip trace, it'll tell you if it's a cell phone, and you can send a one-off text to them, right? Like using a CRM or your cell phone and just simply saying like, hey, Kim, I sent you a piece of mail last week. It looks like it got returned from this address. Did you have a few moments to talk? Something like that to just kind of pique their interest. But what I would start with is having like a text message, a phone call, another phone call, like follow up a couple times to try and get in touch with them. But you can also do that research too, right? You don't want to spend 30 hours trying to hunt this person down, but see what you can find, see what's available. And if you have a good number and they might just not be answering and say it goes to voicemail and it's that person because they answer by that name on their voicemail, just continue to follow up with them. And our kind of rule of thumb is unless they tell us to stop, we're going to continue to follow up with them. And that's where most of our deals come from.
Okay, interesting. So the dead deals, the stuff you mail, they might call back. The stuff they return, you get more deals off of.
Yep. And we typically get like, I'd say 2 to 3 deals a year off of return to sender mail that we're cold calling. So just by not doing that, you could be missing out on $20,000, $30,000 a year easily.
I've had luck with finding those people on Facebook and LinkedIn. I'm not hunting them down on Facebook or LinkedIn. The skip trace I use in Telus. I don't know if it's very good or not, but it gives me unlimited searches. I have to actually manually do them, but then it gives me social media, and I have found more people via Facebook. Not a lot, but we probably bought 4 or 5 houses in the past probably 5 years because we connected with somebody on Facebook, and either they told us how to get in touch with the right person or the right person called us back.
Interesting. I'm going to write that down as a note because I've never tried that. That's a great idea.
I had one just yesterday. The other day I was doing my dead leads, and I go, well, how do I get in touch with this owner? And they're like, oh, well, Bob's the owner, and Bob owns this company, and you can find his company and call him at his company.
Yeah. Awesome. That's cool. No, I've never thought of that. That's a really cool idea. I like that. Any questions from anybody so far that I can answer? I'm pretty open on most things. So like any questions you guys have, like I am happy to answer.
I have lots of questions, so I can ask you a lot, but I know I have looked on, and I know a lot of the people on the call have been on your BallPoint Marketing website, and they've seen that your envelopes look a little bit different than the average envelope. It's not a business envelope, and it's not a plain white envelope. So what are you doing besides handwriting the letter and the envelope? Not handwriting, machine handwriting. Tell us what a machine handwriting is first, and then what are you doing with the different envelopes and things?
Sure. So yeah, great question. I just assume everybody knows that because I'm around it all the time. So on the other side of the wall from me, we have these machines. They're like, I don't know, you can't really tell the size of my desk, but they're probably like a 2 foot by 2 foot square or so is about the space they take up. And they'll hold a ballpoint pen in an arm similar to this mic stand here. And as we program the job, it's literally going to write the letter. It can mail merge in the names, addresses, phone numbers, any data you have on a spreadsheet, we can put in there. And so it's going to handwrite that letter to make it, or pen write that letter, I should say. It's not technically by hand, but we've got cursive fonts, non-cursive fonts, and it really puts a personal approach back into marketing. Something that with all the digital marketing, regular printed mail, our kind of goal was like, I always liked getting handwritten letters, whether if it was from my grandma who was out of state or, a friend, because I grew up before they had cell phones, and, it is what it is. But, just
getting
something
real mail is exciting.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. It's I was like, okay, cool. I'm an adult. I get mail, but having just like a personal approach to it is extremely helpful. So, let me share my screen here for those of you who have not seen our site. Okay. Can you see my screen? Okay.
Yes.
Perfect. So like Kim said, if you go through our site and you just click on products, you'll notice that like everything that we have is very colorful. Everything is very animated. Everything stands out, with the exception of like this product. This is a typical number 10 plain white envelope. It's a printed message. It just has a simple signature in there. Pretty much everything else is much more colorful. You've got different city skylines. You've got these kind of birthday party kind of designs. So, and we also do a seasonal release. So these are our spring mailers that we have currently. So what we do is we want to get you almost 100% open rate, right? I can't guarantee 100%, but I would with a very high degree of confidence say that these are at like 95% or higher open rates from what I've seen. So the way that we design these letters is everything looks a little bit different. It looks like nothing else that you would get in the mail. They're colorful. This one is kind of like a floral design. This is actually one of our biggest sellers right now. This is a kind of like a geometric pattern. This one is kind of looks like granite. We called it, I think, stone, but kind of looks like granite. On the inside, you've got some like little bubbles, a couple other designs there. So the goal with anything we do, and we do provide like the blank white stuff because we do understand that some people just want to send just a professional regular letter, and that's totally fine. but our goal is to help make your mail stand out as much as possible. So you will see on these, like these do say BallPoint Marketing on here, but when we work with our clients, we also recommend like, don't put a company name here, just first and last name. It looks like you've got a nice piece of stationery that you had made for yourself. And that's what's going to get you the most amount of open rates possible. It's a mixture of handwritten, mixture of no company information on the outside, the first class letter, and then it also being postmarked wherever you live. So if you're in Kansas City or New York or Florida, wherever it is, that is going to stand out apart from everything else that's in the mail.
So that is very cool.
Yeah.
So as you were thumbing through, I saw, and we talked about this earlier, that quantity of 500. What if we have smaller quantities? What can we do? So I have a couple lists that I pull weekly, and I'd like to start them weekly, but they're only like 20 to 30 pieces. And so I want to set it and forget it other than the return mail. And
great question.
I haven't found anybody to do that with yet.
Great question. So there's two ways you could do this. So our minimum when you order through our site is 500 pieces because of the amount of turnaround these machines take, right? And every job is not impossible, but it does take a lot of work. So to be efficient, we switch things around. But we do partner with 2 different service providers that are out there to be able to allow you to send just one letter. If you want to send one, if you want to send 5,000, either way. So the first one is Deal Machine. If any of you guys have done any driving for dollars, or if you've looked into any of that at all, they are like the #1 company out there that does that. And as you add leads or as you add a list into Deal Machine, you can order the handwritten mailers directly through Deal Machine's website.
So this your mailers through their website.
Correct.
Okay.
You can also order like printed postcards. Those are not done through us, but as you go through the products, you can choose the handwritten direct mail. I think it even says like handwritten ballpoint letters. So that allows you to just upload the message. You can customize your copy. You can add your phone number in. And I think they just released this today. So I don't know when this recording goes live, but we do also have an exclusive Deal Machine envelope that is only available through them. So the trade-off is there's not as many customizations. Like we don't put a logo on it or a printed website. It is just one envelope, but it looks really, really nice. It's like a kind of like a blue ocean kind of look. It's like Deal Machine's, actually, this is a Deal Machine shirt, Deal Machine colors. So, but you can send as little as one piece of mail through them. So it makes it very easy. And our turnaround guarantee with them is 2 business days. So you put your order in on Monday, it comes out or it's shipped on Thursday. So it would be Tuesday, Wednesday, and it's shipped on Thursday. You do have to pay for Deal Machine, but it is like $49 a month for their basic tier, I believe. If it's more, don't be mad. They might have changed something, but last I remember was $49. And that allows you to get in, be able to upload your lists and process that mail.
Okay.
Cool.
And you said you had a couple. Do you have anything else to partner with?
Correct. The second one is REI Sift. Okay. So REI Sift, if you guys aren't familiar with it, it's a list stacking tool that allows you to add multiple lists together in a from multiple spreadsheets, and it will tell you which properties are on multiple lists. So if you look at a property and it's got these 3 distress points, you probably want to target those people or go talk to them, right? So you can also do the same thing within that system as well.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah, there are more to come. We're working on like 2 others right now that we'll be able to provide through as well. But those 2, you can do as small as 1 letter, as high as however many you need to send. But I would recommend, if you are going to do that, if it does get to be more than 500, it's going to be cheaper long-term to do it directly through our site. I think they have a little bit of an upcharge on the smaller quantities of pieces, but it does allow you to do that.
Yeah, that's what I found is everybody that does the series of marketing on the small quantities, they have a subscription base that before you send anything, that you're going to pay like $89 a month or $59 a month.
Right.
They do other things, but for what I was doing, look, I've already got 5 things that do the other thing. I just need the mailing part done.
Right. Yeah. So, and looks like Scott had a question. What's the typical budget for doing a direct marketing campaign? So great question. It depends on where you live and what type of market you're in. So I'll break this down into 2 categories for you and then give you guys some different options that are more cost effective if you have more time. So if you're in a what we call like a tertiary market, like under a million people in that area, million households, I guess I would say, instead of people. It's typically 2,000 to 3,000 pieces of mail per deal. So on average, like we know in Baton Rouge, for example, we can get a deal done for about $2,200 is about our cost to get a deal, that we profit on average about 12 to 15,000. So that's what we look at is like, what is our cost per lead or our cost per deal, or how many pieces of mail do we have to send? In a bigger, more metro area, your Chicago's, your Atlanta's, your DC's, LA's, things like that, you're typically at like 5,000 to 6,000 pieces of mail, which is a little bit higher, but the payoffs are usually a lot more. I know people that'll do like $75,000 on a deal as their average profit on just a wholesale fee. So it'll
I've done that.
Okay, that's awesome. I haven't got that high yet.
Few and far
working on it.
between.
Yeah, yeah, they're not as common.
I've done two or three. We've done 2 or 3 that big.
Nice, that's awesome. Yeah, there's depending on where you're at, the amount of spread that I have seen from clients has been crazy. So, but those are kind of the two main numbers, is like 2,500 to 3,500 pieces of mail, and then 5,000 to 6,000 based on where you're going. So, Scott, you would be looking at like a 2,500 piece order, probably like $3,500 or so, 3,400 to typically get a deal.
And that's just one letter, one mailing. That's not the second or third mailing.
Correct. Yep. So it'd be for that amount of pieces. So there's 2 different ways you can kind of look at it. If you have a lot of money and not a lot of time, that's the route I would go. If you're like I've been in the past and you have a lot of time, but not a ton of money to get started, what you can also do is use like our door hangers that make it really easy. I'll share my screen here again so I can show you guys.
And I think the door hangers would be fabulous if you had for your return mail, to drive around and go to all those return mail addresses. In theory, they're all in the same general vicinity, and put those up.
Yeah, that's a great idea. I'm getting all kinds of good ideas from you today. So this is our other product I would recommend if you've got a little more time and maybe not as high of a budget. Buying these door hangers, you can get them in quantities as low as 250, and I believe they start at 60 cents a piece for a cursive option. So 60 cents at 250, you're looking at like 135, $140 or so. And what's nice with these is it's a great quick way to get a deal done, especially if you're just getting started out. We've had countless testimonies come in of people getting deals for dropping less than 250 of these. And so for the amount that you're spending versus what you're getting back on it, makes a ton of sense. It just kind of depends on how much time you have long-term. So, if this is all you did, you could get offers in all the time, but it does take a lot of time to do this. So what we kind of do is we keep a stack of these in our vehicles and have our acquisitions people do the same thing. So anytime that they are out at a property, they have to drop off 10 of these nearby. So they drive around the neighborhood real quick, look for 10 additional houses that look like it might be our typical type of property. And they drop one of these off at the door, leave it. They don't even knock. And we just leave it and wait for the calls. And we've seen as high as like a 20% callback rate on these. So this is a good, easy, relatively inexpensive way to get started as well.
And they're highly visible from the street. And I learned by accident, we had a neighborhood that we farmed a long time ago. I think we rehabbed probably 30 houses in a 5 block by 5 block area. Okay. And some roofing company or something went and put big door hangers or flyers on the doors of all the houses.
Yep.
And driving home like 3 or 4 days later, I'm like, this house still has the flyer on the door. Nobody lives there. And this house still has the flyer. So I wrote down all the addresses and hunted up the owners. But it was a neighborhood. I was doing the whole neighborhood. I don't know that you'd want to spend the money or the time to go hit every door if it wasn't a neighborhood that you were trying to do the whole neighborhood. Yeah,
there's a couple of use cases I think where you would do a whole neighborhood, but it, like you said, it's more going to be like what I would recommend and what you would typically call driving for dollars is just drive around some neighborhoods you'd be interested in, and as you see houses, just hop out, drop them off, and keep going. Like we have found that we've had people ask us before, like, well, shouldn't I just door knock them and talk to them? And I don't know about everyone else. I hate when people come to my door. It's not somebody I know.
I don't answer the door.
So I don't, yeah, exactly. I don't typically answer. And I also do live in a subdivision where there's a Jehovah's Witness church right in the middle of it. So like they're on our street all the time. So like we just don't really ever answer the door. So we've found that people appreciate it when we just drop it off, leave it be, and, hey, enjoy your night, enjoy your lunch or dinner, whatever you're doing. And, call me when you're ready. Here's the information. So we have seen really, really good results out of that.
All right. Well, have we got any more questions that I'm missing? I think I've answered all of my questions. Oh yeah. One more. You had an email that I don't know if you have specific emails that you just send or if there's just a series of them and I randomly got this one.
Sure.
But you had an email that was, hey, this list, these are the lists that are working really well right now. So what type of motivation are getting the better results?
Yeah, great question. I'll give you my answer. This is not going to be the right answer for everybody, right? Because it really depends on like what type of property you're looking for, what your end goals are. But in my experience, most investors, and believe it or not, a typical absentee with equity list still performs fantastic for us around the country. So that's kind of, I start with that one, but that's the last list we'll pull. So like, that's kind of like our supplemental data list, I guess you could say. And just a simple absentee with equity, we look at like 35% or more equity, people who haven't sold the home in the last 5 years. So we know they've been there for a little bit and I'm not getting leads that have just been sold on the MLS in the last 60 days. So we'll pull the absentee with equity. But the three like main niche lists that we're going to start with are vacant properties, pre-foreclosures, and then any expired MLS listings. Especially like those have been surprisingly good for us the last 18 months, I would say, especially like this time last year when the market was starting to heat up and things were just like flying off the shelf. Because if something wasn't selling, like there's something wrong with it, right? But now we're running into a point where we're seeing the situation where stuff is just sitting on the MLS longer than what people were used to, even though it's more back to normal for the most part.
For 3 days.
Yeah, like it's 3 weeks. What's going on? What's wrong with it? Nothing. It's normal. But if you get people that are on there for 5-6 months, then there's probably something that now a traditional home buyer does not want to deal with, no matter how desperate they are, right? Like, even though interest rates are higher and things like that, like if there's foundational issues, if there's, major structural problems that people try and sell on the MLS, that's when we go in and we want to we still send it to any expired MLS listings because there could be something like that in there where it's just something I would love to deal with. But, the first time home buyers are like, I don't want to spend 45 grand putting this house back together while trying to live here. So those are kind of like our 3 favorite ones that we start with. And then I always tell people too, like, if you have access or you do have access, it's if you have the time to dig into your local county websites and things like that to find, like, you can find divorce lists, you can find bankruptcies, Liz Pendens, all kinds of different things that you can find. That's always your best data first. So like, pull that first as much as you can. And if it's only 300 records, great. That's totally fine. But then you can supplement that with some of those other bigger, more national lists to get your list to where you want it to be.
Okay.
Yeah.
And are you sending, so your big, huge absentee owner with equity, are you sending the same type of mail that you send all the others, basically?
Yeah.
Or sending your postcards or something?
Great question. Yes. So what we do, and let me share, hopefully maybe the last time, I don't know, we'll see.
That's okay.
What we do is we will typically, this brings up another point actually. I think we have till 7:30, is that right?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. If it's a few minutes later, that's fine too, for me at least. But the product itself, what we want to do is we want to hit the list 2 to 3 times at a minimum, right? You miss out on a lot of opportunity if you only mail them once. So 3 times has been kind of like the magic number where we see the highest return before it starts to diminish. So what we'll typically do is we'll start for the first month send one of the greeting style letters. So it's a first class letter. It's unique. It looks good. It stands out, but it is the most expensive. And it just gets you in front of them, and you're going to get your highest like initial response rate off of that. What we do after that is sometimes we'll send a second one, just depending on how things are looking in the business and what makes sense. But then we'll typically go through and put them on one of the postcard sequences. And the nice thing about these is you take that list, it's going to run through 7 months worth of postcards. So you can see these are 7 different postcards that this is going to go through on the same day each month. And each one of these highlights a different reason why someone might want to sell. So it could be, or not why someone might want to sell, but perks to working with an investor. So get a cash offer in 24 hours, no realtor commissions, so on and so forth. And on the back of these, the writing is going to match, the message is going to match that kind of call to action on there of why someone might want to sell. So it'll mention in there, hey, give me a call and let's save ourselves some realtor commissions. Or, if you want to sell your house, if it's messy, no problem, just give me a call, so on and so forth. We'll then put it on this sequence and allow it to run through this for 7 months. And if we notice like, hey, 3 or 4 months in, the response rate drastically dropped off, we'll just update it with a new list and put some more data in there to keep kind of feeding that machine. That's kind of like our marketing process and the way that we do it.
And so you sent the more expensive letter the first time. So in theory, you've cleaned your list before you dump them in and say, we're going to send them 7 postcards.
Yes.
You've already pulled the bad addresses out.
Correct. And any letters that we do for you, we run it through the National Change of Address database as well before your order. So it's like 90% effective. Sometimes they sneak through, but usually gets your return to sender rate down to about 1 to 1.5% on average. So that way you've got good data, addresses are updated, and then it's ready to go.
And then you mentioned the vacant list, and that's one list I've been struggling to figure out what to do with, because in theory, the vacant list is the houses that the post office says are not deliverable, that nobody's receiving mail. So like I had a house next door to me that was vacant for 5 years and they were not receiving mail. The mailman could not deliver mail and they had a notice. And my house was the same way before I bought it. We had 2 houses vacant for 4 years. I bought one and then the other one sat vacant for another 2 years because they wouldn't sell it.
Okay.
But then I go to the vacant list, and some of the vacant list makes sense. It's mailing somewhere else. Great. But over half of the vacant list is mailing to the house itself. And I'm like, okay. And then I've tried to scrub it to find a forwarding address and it comes back to the house itself. So do you just scrub the list and take the ones out that match, or do you mail the house anyway?
So what we do is when we pull a vacant list, we'll mail it to the mailing address that's on that list. So like you said, sometimes it's that address itself. If I'm being 100% honest, I don't always know that they're bad, right? Like, cause we're pulling data on, like I pull data for Baton Rouge. I've honestly never been to Baton Rouge. I've been there a lot on Zoom calls, but I've never been there in person yet. So, when we're pulling that data, there's not a way for me to know if that address is bad. So what we do is we do make sure that we run it through the National Change of Address database. If it's a bad address, and it will take into account if they're not getting mail, it will give us a list of ones that are recommended to drop from the list. So we typically get a very small percentage of them. They're like, hey, these 20, we're just going to send them back to you anyway. That's typically what we see with those, is trying to still do that. But honestly, if you have some of those houses, you could also drop a door hanger off and just see if somebody swings by sometime and picks it up, right? Like, might work, might not, but it's at least worth a shot.
And then do you plug that into your return mail system that you're doing with the return mail as well? So you skip trace them and try to call them?
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. Well, Scott has a question. He's asking about getting good lists of people to contact. What companies do you recommend? We have PropStream here at MAREI that we recommend. I think you mentioned Deal Machine, but are there any others that you talk about that you like?
PropStream is probably the best one to go through if you're getting started. Deal Machine provides the same data, and I use them all the time. It's a little more challenging at first to understand how their filters and stuff are built out. So if it's someone who, I'm not sure who we have on this call, but like if you're just getting started, like PropStream is like you click 3 buttons, you have a list. Deal Machine, you're clicking 15 or 20, which they are working on fixing, and it'll be updated. And like I said, I still use them. I pull millions of records through them a year. You want to make sure that you start with, like, I think PropStream is probably going to be the easiest, best data source that you can get data from, especially for the price.
Other than the list you build yourself, which are going to be even better.
Yes, those will be better. They're just going to take you some time.
Or have a VA. I had a great VA.
Yes.
She was pulling probate for me. She did a wonderful job for 5 years, but sometime during COVID, I don't know what happened, but she kind of fell off the face of the earth. And I'm like, oh, well, so I guess so I've got to replace her. And
it's hard.
But also during COVID, everybody decided to mail probate. All of a sudden, probate list became easy to get through all of the data services, and probate just doesn't perform, I'm finding, as well as it used to, because everybody and their brother is mailing. A lot more people are mailing it than they were.
Yes. Our kind of trick around that we do ourselves is we don't wait for probates. We scrape obituaries when they come out. So we have a VA that goes through and looks at obituaries in the markets that we're looking at every single day. They add those names and the cities that they lived in onto a spreadsheet, and they're skip tracing them, and we're getting mail out right away. So it's more work, yes, and it is pretty quick as well. It's typically like a week or two later that someone's getting a piece of mail, but you're beating that actual probate filing to try and get it as soon as possible.
I would say that's better than, because I know like PropStream talks about their pre-probate list.
Yeah.
And I'm playing with the pre-probate list, but as I'm pulling up deals, I'm like, I've already mailed this house. I mailed this house 2 years ago.
Yeah.
So I'm like, is this really pre-probate?
Yeah, their data is mostly really, really good, but if they don't know, they just assume that it is what you want it to be. It's like equity is a good thing. Like if there's not a equity reported on that house, they'll just put it as like assumed as 100%. So it's like you get more data, but you do run into that kind of issue sometimes where you're like, I don't know if that's right. Like this seems wrong. So, but overall, PropStream is the way to go.
Yeah. Well, I do find that sometimes when they're on the pre-probate list that, yes, I mailed for the husband, but they're talking about the wife.
Yes.
And I'm like, oh, okay, she passed away too. So now who do I mail?
Yep.
All right. So
cool.
I think that's all of our questions. We're getting close to 7:30. I want to thank you for helping us out answering questions. Yeah. We've got way better education on direct mail than we did before.
Yep. I didn't know you needed to know all that.
Well, I know a lot of this because this is something I study. I mean, and I know some of the people on the call, they go to all the marketing. How do you do your marketing to get leads? We do that. We're always studying that. So, but I think we have a few new people as well.
Awesome. Well, cool. I'm glad it was helpful.
Yeah. And you're in St. Louis. So if I decide to have you drive all the way to come speak at MAREI, we don't have, that's only 4 hours away.
Yeah, no, it's not bad. What days are your RIAs usually?
We're on the second Tuesday. If you drive, it's 4 hours. If you fly, it's 8. So.
Okay. Yeah. No, we could bring my wife down for a day or two. So yeah, we could figure something out, but that'd be fun. I know you put it in the chat there, but for anyone that is interested in getting started, if you use how do you say your coupon code? Is it just MAREI?
It's MAREI is our coupon code. So I believe that saves 5%. I have a fancy a link that you can click to get, but just use the coupon code and that'll get you the discount. It's way easier to remember than whatever the long drawn out code is. And I will be posting the replay. I'll put a pretty code up for everybody on the replay and on YouTube, so it's easy to find.
Yeah, and if anyone on here is considering getting into direct mail, or you want more questions answered, feel free to give us a call at any time at the number on our website. We've got multiple people that can answer your questions that are skilled in understanding like marketing, different areas, things like that, and how they can best formulate a plan for you that's going to work for you. So, you're not in it alone. You guys have questions, feel free to reach out and we're more than happy to help you.
Yeah. Well, awesome. Thanks for everybody for joining in and for the questions. I believe Scott asked us quite a few questions. That was helpful because you got the questions that I didn't think to ask.
Yeah, no, that was great. Thank you, Scott.
All right. Well, I will end it for now, and I will catch y'all on email later.
All right. Thanks, everyone.